Croeso and welcome to Cardiff University's Because of You Festival. My name's Professor Colin Reardon, President and Vice-Chancellor of Cardiff University. This week's all about celebrating the impact that you make, donors, Cardiff members, fundraisers and runners, volunteers, ambassadors and mentors. Those of you who donated in memory of your loved ones, and those of you who've pledged to give us a gift in your will. Your support to help us continue excellent learning and world-class research is now more important than ever. I know our students and researchers are incredibly grateful. I hope you enjoy the festival and that what you remember is a resounding thank you for all you helped to achieve.
Good afternoon, welcome and thank you for joining us today for this Cardiff University event entitled Getting Back on Track, Physio and Running. We had a wide variety of people joining us today from across the UK and around the globe, Newport, Newton Abbot and Norway to name a few. This is the latest in our For Alumni by Alumni live event series, where we hand over webcams and mics to famous, fabulous alumni to share their thoughts, expertise, passions and experiences on topics which will inspire, engage and spark curiosity within our community. This event is also part of our Because of You Festival. At Cardiff, we are so grateful to everyone who donates, volunteers their time to supporting students or as an alumni ambassador, helps to fundraise as part of Team Cardiff or leaves a gift in your will. This week is a suite of events to demonstrate the difference the Cardiff University community makes to our work and research. And I also wanted to extend an extra welcome to all of our Team Cardiff Half Marathon runners, past and present, some of whom have been registered for this postponed event since October 2019. So we hope you'll find this webinar especially useful. Jochen Bauer, thank you. This event is being recorded and we will send you the link in our follow-up email. So my name is Hannah Sterritz. I'm the Alumni and Supporter Engagement Officer at Cardiff University and also a fellow alumna. And it is my privilege to introduce you to today's panellist. Adam Rattenberry, BSc 2005, MSc 2014, is Lead Performance Physiotherapist and Athlete Services Manager at Welsh Athletics. Adam has been working in elite sport since 2007. His experience covers a range of sports, including professional football, netball, swimming, and most recently, track and field athletics. Adam's current role is to lead and coordinate the medical and support services within Welsh Athletics performance programmes. Having achieved a BSc in physiotherapy from Cardiff University, he began working in professional football in 2007 with Cardiff City FC. Adam moved into athletics in 2015 and now supports athletes on the world-class performance and Commonwealth Games programmes. He completed an MSc in Sports and Exercise Physiotherapy at Cardiff University in 2014 and has experience of supporting athletes at major championships, including World, European and Commonwealth Games, and is currently working with Welsh Athletics to prepare athletes for the Tokyo Olympic Games and next year's World, Commonwealth and European Championships. So before we get into our topic, I'd just like to remind our audience that if you do have any questions for discussion this evening, please enter them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And please, in your answer, let us know in the world where you are right now. I also thank everyone who's already submitted questions in advance. So welcome, Adam. Thank you so much for your time this evening. And it's lovely to have you back virtually with Cardiff University, sharing your insights into this topic.
Hi Anna, hi everyone tuning in this evening. It's great to be here on this kind of very sunny Monday evening.
Fantastic, lovely to have you here. So to start our webinar off, how was your time at Cardiff University and what did make you return to Cardiff for your Masters?
So I absolutely loved university. I don't live too far, so previously lived in Devon, so Cardiff was not too far a journey for me. Close enough to home, but close enough, kind of far enough away, if you know what I mean. I visited quite a few universities to look at my undergraduate studies. But I think, like most, when you come to Cardiff and you've seen Cardiff, you kind of fall in love with it. And yeah, 15, 16 years later, I'm still here. So yeah, my time at Cardiff University was brilliant. The course was great. It's got a very well-renowned program for physiotherapy and healthcare studies. So loved my time as an undergraduate, then obviously went out into the big wide world and got some experience. And Cardiff University was a great fit again for me to come back and do my masters. Again, good reputation of the course. I already kind of knew some of the lecturers that delivered on the programme at that point. And it was it allowed me to work and study part-time. So they have a part-time MSc programme. So it allowed me to combine working in youth sport and do my master's study at the same time. So it fit for me.
It's always really important, isn't it? Actually, when you've had the taste of work, it is quite a thing to actually go back and study in the first place. So being able to do it part-time, I imagine, was quite useful. So did you always want to go into physiotherapy?
So my background is in sports. So I was a swimmer, I was a competitive swimmer for many years of my life. And I guess going through my GCSEs and my A-levels, I was very science-minded. So trying to find something kind of science orientated that could lead me into the world of sports. I'd worked with physios through my kind of swimming career. It really whetted my appetite into actually, that's something I think I would really enjoy. So did some work experience with some local physios and got a bug for it. So it really fitted that kind of sports and that kind of science medical background that I was really interested in.
Really interesting. Oh, thank you. So could you share the landscape of Welsh athletics since COVID-19 hit, and how has the athletics schedule changed and the way athletes train during this time?
Yeah, so I guess us as a governing body, so Welsh Athletics is the governing body for everything athletics based within Wales. So we cover the whole pyramid, from social running, park runs to club activity, and then kind of at the top of the pyramid, then that kind of our Olympic and Commonwealth Games program. So I guess obviously when COVID hit originally, at that point, that kind of harsh lockdown that we had in 2020, it kind of stopped everything. Activity across the board stopped, which I guess was really difficult for us because at that point we were still preparing for the Tokyo 2020 Games. It hadn't been postponed at that point. So for us, we had to get innovative. We had to kind of try and keep our athletes motivated and actually try and keep them training at the same time, which was really difficult. And then obviously Tokyo, with the decision then, 12 months. So it bought us a bit of time. Us as an NGB and in my role as kind of that lead in support services, we worked really closely with Welsh Government. I sit on the elite steering group with Welsh Government as a shaping body, as a support group, if you like, feeding into Welsh Government to try and enable things to happen as safely as possible within the regulations. So we were very fortunate in that we worked very closely with our partners at Sport Wales, the Welsh Sports Association, and Welsh Government to allow our elite athletes looking at Tokyo qualification and World Championships and Commonwealth Games to actually start training outdoors from kind of the middle of June last year. So we only had a relatively short time away from facilities compared to the majority of the population, but it was still 3 months away from sport-specific training facilities for some of our guys preparing for some pretty major championships. So we were lucky in that we were probably the first non-professional sport back in Wales, and we had to work under strict guidelines, and we still are operating an elite athlete bubble within our training facilities. But we have been able to get back on track, and we have been back in facilities. I think Wales, having been through kind of the initial lockdown, the gradual easing, then obviously the lockdown that came just before Christmas of last year, certainly our social running programs and our clubs and those the lower end of the pyramid, if you like, have probably been more affected than us. Covered by that elite dispensation.
Yes, of course. I mean, it's so positive seeing the recent Welsh Government guidance that larger events that are outdoor will be able to return, and I'm so excited as a previously an avid park runner, that hopefully parkrun will return, because it is that kind of social running and the kind of grassroots side of it that still hasn't returned. So it's lovely to see that the top end have been able to kind of function, but it's been very different for kind of the grassroots area there. And I suppose related to this, how do you think the pandemic has changed the way we exercise in general?
No, so I think you're right. So I think everything with regards to the general population, I think we've learned from the elite side of things, and that has helped us inform that process with Welsh Government to try and get then some club activity and social running activity going again within safe spaces and safe environments. And I think the benefit that we've got with an athletics and certainly a running community is that most of our activity is outside. So we feel that it is a lot safer, and we can try and get things back on track to make our partners in other sports that are very much indoor based. So I think that bodes well for us. Hopefully, fingers crossed, with Wales we're in a relatively good situation at the moment, so hopefully that does continue over the summer months. But with regards to the pandemic, I think it's probably reinforced the social running boom that we've seen over the last 5 to 10 years. Parkrun has definitely been kind of at the forefront of that, and has been a major player in encouraging social running and getting people out and running. But I think across Wales, we've seen a huge increase in just social running across all parts of Wales over the last 5 to 10 years. And I think obviously when we went into lockdown, we were allowed the one exercise a day from home, back to home, can't go too far away from home. So running, I think, naturally fitted that. You don't need a lot of expensive equipment. You can just put your trainers on and you can go for a walk, you can go for a run from home. So I think it was an option for people, whether they had done it before or whether they were a keen runner. You could probably manage that and keep going through the initial lockdown. And then obviously as things have started to ease, hopefully we are now seeing more of our social running groups coming back online. Hopefully, across some of our social running events and our mass participation events coming online hopefully this year. So it's probably just reinforced that running is relatively easy and it is accessible for all.
I suppose, I'm probably not alone in that the first lockdown, I really kind of seized the opportunity of that one exercise a day, and I really got into a proper training plan and everything. But then subsequent lockdowns, I think my motivation has definitely waned, especially when it was dark and everything. So what is the best method to start exercising again after a period of rest? And how do we keep up that momentum if we're like, oh my goodness, I don't feel like it today? Like, do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is probably the weather. We always like doing things more outside when the weather is much better. So fingers crossed this warm weather lasts, because it does make things a lot more enjoyable. But the first thing I would say is enjoyment. You have to enjoy what you're committing to. If you don't enjoy it, you're not going to commit to something. So it doesn't necessarily have to be running. It can be walking. It can be trail running. It could be mountain running. It could be cycling. It could be any activity. But it needs to be something that you enjoy and that you obviously have access to. With regards to getting back into training, it definitely needs to be at the right level for where you are now. So we definitely have seen in the past where people have taken a break from running, training, etc., and almost trying to come back in at the same level that they left off on, and either struggle or pick up injuries, or it just takes them a lot longer to get back to where they thought they were. So I think getting back into it, it's acknowledging where you are in the here and now, what your running experience is over the last 2, 3, 4 weeks, etc., and having a gradual and progressive training program that builds week on week, session on session, and build that progressively rather than trying to do too much too soon. And I think in there as well, I think I mentioned it's kind of variety as well. So if you do enjoy running, if you haven't been running for a while, it's probably not sensible to go out running every single day from the offs. That's quite a high, what we call impact load, and it's a very big change in load from what you've done over the previous week. So If you are looking to exercise and get into an exercise program, it doesn't necessarily have to be the same activity every single day. So you can mix up running with walking uphill, with cycling, with home workouts. We've seen a big increase in HIIT workouts and home gyms probably over the last 14 months. So try and make it varied, try and make it exciting and enjoyable, but don't necessarily repeat the same thing over. That does have a lot of tissue stress. Mm-hmm. And to try and keep that momentum going, set yourself little challenges. Hopefully, like I said, we're going to see some of our mass participation events come online. So sign yourself up for some of those to give you that added motivation. Set yourself little challenges, week by week, session by session. And if it is running that you're involved in, can you run with somebody else to set challenges to increase that social aspect of it? So is there a local social running group with you? Are there a couple of people on the estate that go for a run that you can join up as a group and set yourself little challenges to try and carry that momentum on?
Fantastic. I mean, you've touched on a few things there as well, but is there anything else that makes a good training plan?
Yeah, so I guess it comes back to the training plan being appropriate for your level of running over the short period, if that makes sense. You may have done a lot of running previously, but if you have had a break over COVID, or if you've had a break because of injury or illness at all, I guess the training plan has to be appropriate for your level of running at that point. So I have to say I'm not a coach, so I can't go into the specifics of a coaching plan, but there are some general philosophies, and there's definitely some really good resources out there that I can kind of signpost to. And I guess if we start kind of at the beginner's level, if you're new to running, or running is something that you want to take up, like I said, it's not that you need to go straight into running 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week. That's probably not sensible. Certainly mixing up the variety of activities that you do. But a really good resource is the Run Wales website. Mm-hmm. Run Wales is the kind of social running arm of our national governing body. And it's a big community of social runners, social running groups, local running groups, just looking at that kind of enjoyment of social running. They have some really good resources. So they have kind of like first steps into running. So there's a program there for running your first mile, where you kind of do a couple of walk, jog sessions through the week and build that up over a couple of week program. So that's really, that's a good starting point. Mm. And then you've got the Couch to 5K program, which is it's a really good recognised program for progressing from kind of maybe your first mile to that 5K point. For those that haven't seen Couch to 5K, it's a 9-week program. Again, it's all on the Run Wales website, but it's a 9-week program. It's a preset running program where in week 1 you do, so each week you do 3 running sessions a week, and they're split with a day rest in between. And you just gradually build up how much walking and how much running you do over those 9 weeks. And ultimately then comes with a kind of time trial or a timed 5K at the end. Yeah. So that's where it sets that little challenge for you. And we often see a lot of people graduating, if you like, from Couch to 5K to their local park run. Mm-hmm. So fingers crossed they do come back relatively soon, because it's a really good resource, a really good social running program for people. Mm. So that's kind of takes you up to 5K. And I guess if we've got half an eye on the Cardiff Half Marathon, getting from that kind of 5K to half marathon, there's some really nice resources, again, on the Run Wales website, looking at building up to your first 10K. And we also have a 10-week program for improving your time over 10K. Mm-hmm. And then on the Cardiff Half website, there's kind of sample training programs for beginners, intermediate, and more advanced level runners, looking at kind of 12 to 16-week programs to build from your level of running experience all the way up to half marathon. So there's some really good resources out there building up to half marathon. I guess if you're slightly more advanced and you've been running for longer, and training program, but you're just looking for slightly different elements to the training program. You've got things that you can drip feed into your weekly program, like you might try progression runs. A progression run is where you start off at kind of a relatively easy pace, and you actually then build your pace through that run, and you end up finishing the run faster than when you started it. Mm-hmm. And these are really good for trying to introduce faster paces. So if you're trying to improve your 5K time, if you're trying to improve your half marathon time, it starts to get you used to turning the legs over a little bit quicker and producing more force off of the ground by running faster. Mm-hmm. So progression runs are a really nice way to just drip feed in a little bit of speed initially to a program. You can then use things like interval reps, or what we call fartlek. So fartlek is a term for speed play. So varying up different speeds of running. And you can do this at any level, because the speed play or the intervals can just be tailored to be appropriate for your level of running at that time, or the paces that you're running at for a 5K, 10K, or half marathon, or even a marathon. And just do short intervals, running at a faster pace with maybe a walk jog or a jog recovery in between, just to allow that kind of heart rate to come back down again, and for keeping warm and moving, and then repeating that pace several times. You can look at that. Then we come on to what we call tempo runs. Mm-hmm. A tempo run is probably a more sustained, faster effort. So it kind of builds on from some of the interval or the fartlek repetitions, where maybe over 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or over a set, slightly longer distance, you're looking at maintaining a set pace, and it may be the pace that you want to run for your 5K, or the challenge that you've set yourself for the half marathon, and gradually over time trying to increase the length or the distance of that tempo, and try and maintain that pace that you've challenged yourself or training for, with your end result in mind, really. And one thing we also like to drop in with some of our athletes, just for a bit of variety and some strength training, mm-hmm. maybe after you've done a relatively easy run or a short run for the day, is just dropping 6 to 8 20 to 30 second hill runs in mm-hmm. at the end. Hill runs is a really good way of trying to build strength through the legs, and develop that kind of speed and power off the ground.
Fantastic. There are so many different tips. I should definitely have been taking notes then, but I'm sure I can tune in after this and pick up on that again. So there's just these different ways of making it more exciting as well, rather than, oh no, I've got to do 5, 6, 10K today, and then that's me done. Actually, there's some more variety you can add to that, and also it'll improve your time as well, hopefully. One thing that is kind of notorious among some of my running friends is warming up before exercise. Why is that important?
So that's a good question. I think so. Warm-ups and cool-downs, I think, are important. I guess they both have slightly different roles. But a warm-up, certainly. So if I kind of come from our athlete background, which is applicable for everybody. A warm-up does lots of different things. So firstly, we use a warm-up with our athletes to almost self-calibrate. So how is my body feeling today? Is there any areas that are particularly tight? What are my ranges of movement? How do I feel when I'm starting to do some of those kind of tight movements? Mm-hmm. And if I feel like something is a bit tight or it's not quite moving right, it gives me the opportunity to maybe do some foam rolling or some mobility work, to try and improve that kind of that range of movement or the mechanics of my running before I then go out and do my 5, 6, 10 miles, 1 mile, 5K, etc. So from a biomechanical point of view, it allows us time to self-calibrate the body and move or adjust movement in a way that is more appropriate for the activity. You've then got the kind of the internal workings of the body then. So a warm-up should be nice and progressive. It should be gradually warming up your body temperature. It should be warming up the joints and the muscles, raising your heart rate. Your breathing will get slightly faster, so that you're starting to warm up all of the body systems that are required for exertion or activity, if you like. It also gets you mentally prepared, so it switches you on and just kind of focuses your attention a little bit on what's ahead of you, what you've got in store for today's session. And I guess those kind of with injuries or coming back from an injury just allows you to check the body is okay and prepare the body for loading forces, and just checking that there's no pain, how things are feeling. Gives you that chance to catch anything in the bud before running 5 miles and not being able to get back at home again because there's something that's sore or something like that.
Again, very fair point. I will take that on board. If we talk about common running injuries, could you kind of share what the signs and symptoms? We had a lot of questions in advance about knee-related issues, and I suppose you can't talk about the specifics here, but generally, what is okay with knee-related issues and when should you ask for help?
Okay, yeah. So I think as a general rule of thumb for any injury, if that makes sense. So as a general rule of thumb, if you think of a scale, if you like, 0 on one end and 10 on the other. 0 being there's no pain at all, no symptoms, and 10 being the worst pain you can imagine and the worst case in your symptoms. What we would usually say is that if it's a 0, 1, 2, 3 out of 10 that doesn't get any worse with activity, or actually may get better with activity, that eases off quite quickly after you finish that activity and is gone within 24 hours, that's quite safe.
Okay.
That's safe. Those are the safe boundaries, if you like. So a 0 to 3 out of 10 that eases off relatively quickly, and then it's eased off within 24 hours of activity. That's pretty safe. Anything kind of 4+, and definitely anything that's 4+ that gets worse with activity, that's operating or it's kind of reacting out of those kind of boundaries of what we would call safe. So I would definitely advise kind of getting something like that just seen by maybe a local physio or a local specialist, just to try and give you a little bit more information about where the pain is coming from and is it safe, or is there something you can do in the background to bring that 4 down to 3, either with some therapy, some soft tissue, some strength and conditioning. But we'll come on probably to footwear in a minute, but there's lots of things that you can do to change things. So 0 to 3 out of 10 that doesn't get any worse, you're operating within safe boundaries. A 4 out of 10 that either gets worse, or 4 out of 10 that doesn't settle down after 24 hours. You definitely probably want to get that checked out.
And
I guess with...
Sorry. I was going to say, would you say the same about kind of exercise-induced lower limb pain, so shin splints, calf strains, bone stresses, like things like that? Is that the same sort of advice that you would advise, I suppose?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess their pain presentation, and those are probably, so certainly the knee and certainly lower limb exercise pain, those are probably the common injuries that we see across our social running groups and those preparing for half marathons and marathons. Probably what I would say with regards to the knees, I get asked a lot of questions about arthritis in knees. What I would say is that there are a lot of good studies out there to suggest that running is not bad for your knees, and if you have arthritis, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't run. What I would suggest is, obviously, it depends on the level of arthritis you have in your knee. You need to start slowly. You need to see how your knee reacts to starting a running program. Take things steady and definitely leave a day or 2 in between bouts of running to make sure that it settles down. If you are a keen runner and you are hampered because you have arthritis or knee problems, then it's definitely worth seeking some advice from a local physio or local specialist, because you have arthritis in the knee doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to. There are some really good studies that actually show that people that do run regularly with arthritic knees, the long-term follow-up afterwards, they don't report any worse symptoms. And on serial kind of imaging, the arthritis in the knee is no worse. So I would definitely don't advise just because you have arthritis, don't exercise. That's definitely not the right thing. Yeah. But you probably just need to start slow and commit to that. And what you probably need is a really good strength program to try and make your knee as strong as possible. And you may just need to kind of seek some advice from a local physio to help you through that.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Coming on to the lower limb exercise-induced lower limb pain, those are, that's a lot of that we see in the build-up to longer runs, so half marathon and marathons. And they're slightly different, so they all affect the lower limb, so from the knee down, but they all present in slightly different ways. Some are much safer than others. So if we start with calf strains, usually the pain is very acute. So it usually comes on when you're running. And it's often described as kind of a pop or a sharp pain, or some people describe it as kind of being shot in the leg. So you kind of know when that happens, and you kind of have to stop running. It forces you to stop running, and you kind of, when you're walking home, it's still sore and it's still feeling. So that pain where you've got nothing at all, and then when you are running or you're doing some sort of loading activity where you get that kind of sharp pain, that's probably a calf strain. Mm-hmm. Those usually, depending on how much damage there is, usually will probably stop you running for about 2 to 3 weeks. Okay. And if you do experience that, I would probably seek advice from a local physio, just to try and give you a really nice graded rehab program. So starting some strength work, and then like a return to running program, and then, when we said before about not going straight back into where you were before, but gradually building yourself back up again, so that that calf has time to recover and tolerate the loads that it needs. And then with another common one is shin splints, what we call medial tibial stress syndrome. Medial tibial stress, or shin splint if you like, is usually a pain in the lower third on the inside of the shin. Okay. It usually is sore during your warm-up phase, but that pain usually eases off. So by the time you've got into the main bulk of your running, it's that shin splinty medial tibial stress type pattern, then that's usually eased off, and you can run pain-free through your session. You may find that your pain returns once you stop, but it usually eases off within 24 to 36 hours, and then it warms up again and goes away the next time you run. And again, that's where the rule of 0 to 3 kind of comes in again. So 0 to 3 out of 10 doesn't get any worse, relatively safe to continue on. If that is something you're experiencing, what I would say is try and ice your shins after you've run. Have a look at doing some foam rolling through your calves and through your shins, just release any tight tissue. And then if it's something that is kind of hampering your running, then again, maybe seek some advice from either podiatry, who are specialists looking at foot function, or local physios, because there's a lot that we can do for that. So we would look at biomechanically how your foot is and how it works, strengthening exercises, some advice on footwear. That's not something that should stop you running. It's something that you may just need some help managing. Yeah. And then we come on to the bone stress type injuries. And these are probably a little bit more serious than the previous two. The way that you recognise these are that it's that pain that you start with when you run that doesn't warm up. It doesn't necessarily get any better. In fact, it probably gets worse as you're running. And you often get what we call crescendo pain. So that pain gradually builds up, gradually builds up, gradually builds up until all of a sudden the pain is just so bad. Real pain running on it. If it gets to that point, it's probably also painful walking, and it won't settle down within 24 to 36 hours. And you often get resting pain, so it can ache if you're at work or just sitting watching TV. You can often feel pain or an ache at night. If those are the symptoms that you're experiencing, then I would definitely recommend seeking advice from somebody locally, because those are the symptoms of a typical bone stress reaction. And if you are to carry on with those symptoms, you may be in a position where you make things worse. So it's good to get those assessed early and get a management plan wrapped around that as early as possible.
Yeah. It's so interesting and so useful as well, because it is just that base level of knowledge that is so just vital if you do start experiencing something, knowing if it is serious. But again, that 0 to 3 is so useful to think about as well. So thank you for that. I suppose you've mentioned quite a few times about footwear. So what should we be looking for in our running shoes? And does a good pair matter, or can we just buy whatever we like the look of?
So it's a good question. It's a good question for many different reasons. It's a hot topic at the moment because of, certainly in my world, the carbon-plated shoes. I guess, so with footwear, I would almost see it as a spectrum. So kind of on one side of the spectrum, you've got kind of the barefoot running community and the minimal support type shoes. And then at the other end, you've got the kind of highly structured overpronation type support shoes. So there's a lot of variety out there. First thing is they need to be comfortable, and they probably need to be the right size. So the shoe needs to fit properly. And what I mean by that is, so the size of the shoe needs to be appropriate, so leaving gap at the end for your toe to move when you're running. And also what we call the toe box as well, so the side to side space. So having enough room for your foot to spread when it's contacting the ground. So definitely the size of the shoe matters, whether your toes are crammed in. If you've got a wide foot, or if you are slightly flat-footed and you need a slightly wider toe box, good to talk to local specialists about that. And then it's probably not one size fits all. It's about understanding what your foot type is and what does your foot do when you're running. Are you a pronator and need a little bit of support? Is your foot relatively neutral? Or is your foot very rigid and actually needs a little bit of shock absorption, needs a bit of cushioning underneath? So again, what I would probably do is defer to kind of local, certainly if you're in Cardiff, we've got some great resources locally. You've got Ace Feet in Motion, you've got Moti, and you've got Run and Become, who are specialists. They kind of look at how your foot interacts with the ground, and they can recommend certain footwear based off of how you're running. So comfort, size, and then seek, if you haven't found, or you find that you get recurring injuries, or you just can't find a shoe that fits properly, I'd probably seek out one of those local resources, get them to have a look at how you're running and recommend an appropriate shoe off the back of that.
Great. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the running shops in Cardiff. And also, if you do mention, I've found in the past, if you mention you're participating in a race, they often give you a discount, which is wonderful. So always good to know that.
Always helps.
Absolutely. We've already got time for one more question. So and again, this is something we've kind of touched on, but just see if you've got anything else to add to it, is strength and conditioning for runners. So what can we be doing to aid our training that isn't running related?
Yeah, really excellent. And that probably brings me back to that variety and that graded progression. So some stats to back up kind of what I'm saying, I guess. Strength and conditioning for runners is really important. Certainly if we're looking to build pace, and certainly if we're looking to build mileage as well, and build up to that half marathon. Yeah. So like I said, to reinforce that, a couple of stats. So when we're running at 3.5 meters a second, which is around 12 kilometers an hour, So I guess that's equivalent to a 50k, 50-minute 10k time.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sort of average pace that you'd be running at. The amount of force that goes through your calf muscles, so one of your calf muscles, soleus, the force that goes through it at that pace is around about 6.7 times body weight. And that's for each step that we take. If we start to run a little bit faster and we run at 5 meters a second, which is around 18 kilometers an hour, and that's around about a 2:20 marathon pace, you're looking at 7.9 times body weight through the calf for every step we take. And then when we get up to faster paces around 7 meters a second, which is 25 kilometers an hour, which is around about a 155-800 pace, you're looking at 8.7 times body weight per step that you take. So you need to be conditioned to be able to cope with that amount of load. So strength and condition is a vital part of certainly our athletes' running program. And if I guess there's one exercise that I could give people or encourage people to do is that calf raise. So you have two calf muscles, your gastroc and your soleus, one that you bias, one that you work more with your legs straight, and one that you work more with your knee bent. And it's that one with your knee bent that is your soleus muscle, and that's the one that has to attenuate, has to do a lot of that work when we're running. So around about 50 to 70% of that body weight is done and produced and absorbed by that soleus muscle. So if there's one exercise that you kind of add into your program, what I would do is seated, and it's easy enough to do at home. Sitting with your, so if you've got access to a gym, so a seated calf raise machine, or if you're in the gym, you just put your foot on a Reebok step or a box and have a kettlebell on your knee, and you do single leg calf raises with your knee bent. At home, during the first lockdown, we had to try and keep that going with our athletes. So what we did is just a couple of books on the floor to raise your foot up so you can drop the heel up and down. And then you can get 5-litre bottles of water, which are pretty heavy, and balance that on your knee. And we would usually set reps and sets of around 3 to 4 sets and around about 20 to 25 repetitions of single leg calf raises. And that's the type of density that you need to really get that calf muscle as strong as possible in preparation for dealing with your running loads.
Brilliant. I mean, I don't know who is in the webinar at the moment who are looking for books and water and all of these things, or maybe just Googling single leg calf raises, but that's really useful.
Absolutely. Yeah, single leg, bent knee calf raises. And yeah, gradually, like with the running, gradually build up the resistance that you're able to form those reps and sets with, just to try and get that calf as strong as possible. We could go into hours of strength and conditioning for runners, but soleus is an absolute must, and then trying to get your hips and your hamstring as strong as possible so that you're nice and stable on single leg. But my go-to to start with would be that soleus.
It's always good to know where your starting point is, and then it's fantastic you've been mentioning all of these different things that participants can have a look at afterwards, so thank you. I'm afraid we're actually out of time today, so it's been fantastic for both, I suppose, our runners and our non-runners in the audience to have a professional perspective of how we can get back on track or maintain your training, as well as things to look out for, so we hopefully stay healthy and injury-free. I might even go for a run tomorrow, maybe. We're inspired that much. If you are an alumnus of the university and you have a topic that you'd like to pitch for our For Alumni by Alumni series, either live webinar or written blog in our e-news ready for the next academic year, please do get in touch, and the details of how to do that will be in our follow-up email. We also still have free fundraising spaces available for this October's Cardiff Half Marathon as part of Team Cardiff, fundraising for neuroscience, mental health research or cancer research at Cardiff University. So the sign-up link will be available in the chat box shortly or in our follow-up email. And then thank you again to everyone who have tuned into this event as part of our Because of You festival this week, and we hope you'll all join Cardiff University for another virtual event in the future. The full list of our events as part of the Because of You festival can also be found in the chat box or also in the follow-up email. You will receive that email in the next couple of days with a copy of the recording and links to register for upcoming events. And most of all, huge thank you to you, Adam, for sharing your expertise so generously. Diolch yn fawr iawn. And thank you to our audience for joining us and asking some brilliant questions. Thank you very much for your time. So diolch yn fawr a hwyl fawr. Have a lovely evening. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.